Have you ever found yourself running in place despite all your hard work, career advancement, and endless to-do lists? I know the feeling. You do everything we're told, pay your taxes, fund your IRA, keep an eye on your credit score. But the reality is, your standard of living is quietly but inexorably slipping. You may be earning more than your parents did at your age, but somehow buying your own home has become a pipe dream. And grocery shopping now feels like a complicated financial transaction. This is no accident. And it's not your fault. You've become a victim of the greatest wealth transfer in history. And right now, as you listen to me, the system is taking away the last vestiges of your financial freedom. Most people watch the news and see only boring numbers. Inflation at 3%, the national debt at $36 trillion. These figures are deliberately presented in such a dry manner that you'll want to change the channel. But let me translate this into the language of your life. The dollar in your wallet isn't just a piece of paper. It's a measuring tape for your time and your energy. And the problem is, the United States government cuts a few inches off that tape every morning. Since 1971, when we finally abandoned gold as a backing, our money has become a political tool. When the government needs to finance another war or bail out a failing bank, they don't ask your permission. They just print trillions. But this money doesn't appear out of nowhere. You pay for it, with the loss of purchasing power from your savings. It's a hidden tax you didn't sign up for, but which you dutifully pay every time your rent or insurance bills skyrocket. We've reached the point of mathematical no return. A national debt of $36 trillion isn't just a frightening statistic. It's a death sentence for the current financial model. To give you a sense of scale, if you spent $1 every second, it would take you 32,000 years to spend $1 trillion. And our government owes $36 trillion. Mathematically, this debt is impossible to repay. It was never intended to be repaid. Washington's only plan is to devalue the dollar so much that the debts become nothing. But your savings and your future will go up in flames along with them. I'm not here to scare you, but to help us face the truth together. You are a willing donor to the life support of a dying system. Look at what's happening right now outside our bubble. We've become accustomed to the world needing dollars because all energy is traded in them. This has provided us with a high standard of living for decades. But that era is over. Saudi Arabia, China, and India have already started trading oil without our currency. Once the world no longer needs dollars to buy resources, all those trillions we've been sending abroad for decades will flood back home. It won't just be inflation, it will be a financial tsunami. Have you ever wondered what will happen to your pension fund, which is 70% made up of paper promises, when the measuring stick breaks? Your bank account balance may remain the same, but you won't be able to buy almost anything with it. The most frustrating thing is that institutional giants like BlackRock understand perfectly well where we're heading. Have you ever wondered why they're buying up apartment buildings en masse, overpaying enormously? Why are they literally taking property from ordinary families? Because they know, in a world of depreciating paper, only real physical assets will have value. They want to turn us into a nation of perpetual renters, where you own nothing, and every cent you earn goes toward paying a subscription for the right to live under a roof. It's a new feudalism in digital guise. While you're accumulating virtual points in the bank's app, they're taking the land and the walls from you. I spent months poring over reports from the Bank for International Settlements and the IMF, which are so complexly written that you and I would have to close them on page 2. And what I found there made me completely rethink my approach to money. They're preparing a great reset. They know the debt bubble will burst, and their plan isn't to save the middle class, but to migrate everyone to a new system of absolute digital control. Central bank digital currencies aren't about your convenience. They're about making your money programmable. They're about the right to cut off your access to purchases if your views or lifestyle don't meet their standards. This is power that tyrants of the past could only dream of. But I'm here to tell you, we still have a loophole. While the system is still running on inertia, you have a narrow window of opportunity. You must stop thinking like a consumer and start acting like an insider. You must understand what assets the U.S. government is actually accumulating behind closed doors, while publicly calling them bubbles. Why are central banks buying gold at the fastest pace in 70 years? They're building life rafts for themselves while we're being told to stay aboard and believe in stability. Realize one thing, no one is coming to save us. No administration, no politician will challenge the system that feeds them. Your financial security is your personal responsibility. And the first step is understanding how exactly your time is being stolen. We live in an era when the safe decisions have become the riskiest ones. If you continue to do what everyone else is doing, you'll end up where everyone else does, with a devalued account and shattered dreams. But you still have a chance to protect your family during the greatest chaos in history. The music is fading, chairs are running low. It's time to act before the rules of the game change completely. Now, I want you to look at your smartphone. For most of us, it's the center of our lives. But for the financial system, it's the terminal of your future digital prison. While we're distracted by endless notifications and social media squabbles, the architecture of your money is being completely rebuilt behind closed doors. You've probably heard about central bank digital currencies. The news portrays them as incredible convenience, instant payments, and progress. But if we peel back the marketing fluff, the naked truth remains. This is the end of the concept of private property. A traditional dollar, even if it's sitting in your bank account, still has some freedom. You can withdraw cash and spend it wherever you see fit. But this new digital money will be programmatic. This means the government will be able to decide for you how you can spend your hard-earned money. Imagine your money having an expiration date. If you don't spend it by the end of the month, it's reset to zero to stimulate consumption. Or imagine you can't buy a plane ticket or fill up your car with gas because you've already exceeded your personal carbon footprint limit this month. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's functionality that's already been coded and being tested in pilot projects. Why is this happening now? Because it's the only way for the government to manage that colossal debt we've been talking about. When the system can no longer pay its bills, it begins to tightly control your consumption. And your bank is the first barrier. Have you ever tried to withdraw a large sum of cash at your branch? You're faced with a real interrogation. Why do you need this money? What are you going to do with it? Where did it come from? You're made to feel guilty for trying to take what's yours. This happens because banks don't physically hold your money. Your digital record on a screen is just a promise to pay, which the bank hopes never to fulfill in full. We live in a fractional reserve system, where for every dollar you own, there are, at best, a few cents in the vault. Everything else is other people's debt, car loans, and mortgages that the bank has resold 10 times over. And here we come to the most dangerous moment for your capital. When real panic sets in, and history teaches us that it always begins suddenly, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, the bank's doors will simply close. Think of the crises of recent years in other countries. People stood in endless lines at ATMs that dispense $50 per user. Their savings were frozen to save the national economy. In the United States, legislation has already been passed that allows for the internal bailout of banks using depositors' funds. This is legally enshrined. If your bank becomes insolvent, it won't wait for taxpayer assistance. It will simply convert your deposits into its depreciating shares. You'll wake up not with cash, but with a stake in a sinking ship. And all of this will be done completely legally. You might ask, why aren't the elite panicking? Because they're already out of the loop. While the middle class debates whether tech stocks will rise another couple of percent, large billionaire family offices are engaged in a flight to quality. They're buying not promises, but physical reality. Look at the charts of central bank gold purchases. They're buying it by the ton, at the fastest pace in decades. Ask yourself, if gold is a worthless metal, as the financial media would have us believe, then why are the world's most knowledgeable players exchanging their dollars for it? They know that when the system resets, only assets without counterparty risk will matter. Gold is the only money that isn't someone else's debt. It doesn't depend on whether the government pays its $36 trillion or not, but there's something even more exciting. We live in the age of digital transformation, and the U.S. government, despite its public aggression against cryptocurrency, has become one of the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world. Officially, these are confiscated funds. But here's the paradox. They don't sell it. They store it in secure wallets, creating what I call a hidden strategic reserve. Why? Because they understand that when trust in the paper dollar finally collapses, they will need an asset that the entire world recognizes. An asset with a mathematically limited supply. They are building a digital fort for themselves, while they advise you to continue believing in paper promises. It's a classic game. Do as they do, not as they say. Think about your real estate. For most, it's your greatest asset. But in the new reality, land ownership is becoming a primary target. When the government needs more money and hyperinflation makes printing it dangerous, it resorts to outright confiscation through taxes. We're already seeing property taxes and insurance costs rising exponentially in many states. You can pay off your mortgage in full, but you'll never truly own your home as long as you're obligated to pay the government an annual rent, which it can raise at any time. If you can't pay, they'll simply take your land. It's a modern form of feudalism. You're paying 3 times for the same right to simply have a roof over your head. The system isn't broken. It works exactly as it was designed. It was created to siphon real value from those who create it to those who operate the printing press. It's a gigantic machine that drains your time and your life energy. The only way to stop fueling this machine is to change the very structure of your thinking. You need to stop measuring wealth in dollars and start measuring it in assets that can't be printed. This is the fundamental shift that separates those who will lose everything from those who will emerge from this crisis as winners. We have reached a point that historians will call the Great Reset. It will be a time of chaos, but also a time of great opportunity for those who are prepared. Right now, we'll explore the final steps: how to protect your last reserves, and how to exploit the very loopholes the banks created for themselves but forgot to close for us. When we talk about escaping this trap, most people immediately think of quick trades or trying to guess the next market trend. But the truth is, in 2026, the only way to beat the system is to use the same mechanisms banks have used against us for decades. We're entering the final stage, building your personal financial fortification. The first thing you need to understand is the concept of liquidity outside the system. If your assets exist only as numbers inside a banking app, you don't own them, you rent them. Your first task is to transfer some of your capital into forms that don't rely on anyone's permission or the functionality of servers. This means owning physical gold and silver, not stored in a safe deposit box, but somewhere you have access to 24/7. This is the world's oldest insurance, and it works precisely when everything else descends into chaos. If the world's central banks are buying gold at record rates, what makes you think you don't need it? The second step is to rethink your approach to debt. In a high-inflation environment, debt can be your ally if it's good, fixed-rate debt invested in a real asset. If you have a mortgage at 3% and real inflation is 10%, the government and the market are paying off your debt for you. You're giving the bank tomorrow's cheap dollars for an asset that's expensive today. But be extremely careful. Any floating rate debt in the current environment is financial suicide. Banks will raise rates until they've squeezed you dry. Your strategy should be to aggressively divest consumer debt and lock in long-term liabilities at the lowest possible levels. Now, about the most important asset I mentioned earlier: Bitcoin. Forget crypto fever and dog pictures. We're talking about a mathematical protocol for the transfer of value. It's the only asset in human history that can't be printed, counterfeited, or confiscated as long as you hold your private keys. Bitcoin is an antidote to endless money printing. The US government is hoarding it because it understands that in a world of digital control, they'll need a neutral reserve asset. You need it for the same reason. Even 1 or 2% of your portfolio in this asset can be a lifeline that outweighs the losses from the devaluation of everything else you own. It's your insurance against government bankruptcy. But financial strength isn't just about what you have, it's also about where you are. In the new reality, geography is becoming destiny. You need to diversify your life the same way you diversify your stocks. If all your income, real estate, and bank accounts are in one jurisdiction, you're completely dependent on the whims of one government. Smart money is now being spread across different countries. A residence permit in one place, a bank account in another, a business in a third. This isn't tax evasion, it's basic security hygiene. When the trap of central bank digital currencies slams shut, you'll want to be able to exit through an emergency exit. Finally, the most valuable asset that can't be taken away from you is your skills and your community. In the era of the Great Disruption, connections between people will become more valuable than money. Those who can create real value, produce goods, or provide critical services will always survive, no matter what currency is currently in use. Stop investing all your time in careers within corporations that can disappear overnight. Invest in your education, in your tools, and in the people you trust. The greatest redistribution of wealth in history has already begun. You can either watch it with bated breath, watching your savings dwindle, or you can become someone who understands the new rules of the game. The system hopes you'll remain ignorant. that you'll continue to believe the headlines and hope for a miracle. But miracles don't happen in economics. There are only causes and effects. I've shown you the mechanisms of theft and ways to protect yourself. Now the choice is yours. You can close this video and return to your normal life, hoping for a break. Or you can start building your fortress today. The music has stopped, the chairs are occupied, but you can still choose whose side you're on in this new world. Be careful, be vigilant, and remember, in a world of paper promises, only those who own reality survive. See you in the new world.